Hello. So this is everything you'd need if you were to become a film composer or media composer. Number 1, laptop or a computer. Primarily looking at Apple. Those are the best ones out there if you can afford to have that. The M1s, the M2s are so much more powerful than anything else that's knocking around at the moment. In terms of affordability as well, I believe going for them at the moment is the best option. You can go down the route of Hackintoshes and things like that, but I don't think they're actually financially that viable anymore with the amount of problems that they bring. Windows versus Apple. Apple's operating system just works better with music at the moment. All of the DAWs that you'll need, digital workstations, and the plugins and things like that, they do just work better with Apple at the moment. 2, audio interface. An audio interface is a device that converts analog audio, so me recording my guitar, through the interface and into a computer. It will come with mic inputs and instrument inputs depending on how many you buy, as in how many input outputs, how many instruments and microphones you can record with. It also feeds the audio out of your computer into your speakers. So if you have a laptop, most people will just work and not even have much of an interface. They'll just plug their headphones straight into their headphone jack. But if you're a stationed computer, like I have got, and like you want to upgrade to, then it is a very, very high quality device for listening back and making sure that everything is transparent, in addition to music going into the computer. So it's a very important device. 3, microphones. I would suggest straight off the bat, you've got a Shure SM7B, which is an amazing microphone. And the reason for that is because it's something called a dynamic microphone, right? So when people are on stage in pubs, they use dynamic microphones because it rejects all of the sound outside of the area to which you are singing into. So all of the background noise of the pub and other band members mostly gets lost. Now, the benefit of that is when you're starting out, you haven't got a great space to record in because you are going to have to invest in soundproofing, which we'll get to. The benefit of it is you can start straight away. You don't have to think about soundproofing too much. The other thing is that it works amazingly well with a load of different instrument types. So guitar, amps, so electric guitar, vocals, was used by Michael Jackson on some of his tracks, bass guitars, because it has a great depth to it. It's just a very good all-round mic for many different things. Secondly, you'll want to pair that with a more open sounding microphone, so a condenser, and if you can afford to, a multi-pattern condenser microphone would be the best way to go. So patterns, like I said, you've got dynamic, which is everything's closed off and it's just coming out of here, right? But a multi-pattern microphone will allow the ability to do things like record in an entire circle around the mic. So if you've got multiple vocalists, it gives you that opportunity, as well as a few other options, which we won't go into. Some amazing brands out there. Neumann is obviously a good starting point because they are historically one of the most popular mics ever made, manufacturers of mics ever made. Warm Audio are an amazing brand who make cheaper versions of these classic microphones, so you can budget there. Also the Avantone Seed V12, which is a red valve microphone, which is very affordable for a valve mic, and it is multi-pattern. So as a starting point, that's a fantastic one to look into. Number 4, soundproofing. Soundproofing is very important because in the room you're going to record in, you don't want to have unnecessary phasing. So what that means is if I sing in this room, I have, as you can see behind me and also in front of me, which you won't be able to see, is various points of which I get reflections from various sounds as they ping around the room. So if I've got a microphone set up in the middle, then all of these sounds are going to be going in at different times, which creates like delays and stuff like that, but not ones that we want. And often what happens is it's the same sound, which is where we get something called phase, a phase issue, where two sounds collide and they cancel each other out. So generally, in terms of recording sound, it is beneficial to have rooms that are soundproofed in some way. Now, if you go to a studio, what they'll often do is they'll break it up into a vocal booth, which is very, very soundproof. Sounds like you've got your head in a cupboard full of coats. But they'll also have a live room, and that live room is tuned, or it's, fabricated so that it sounds lively, like you're in a hallway, or all these sorts of things. So there's the natural reverb, but that works with some instruments. And then when you've got things like vocals, you want to have total control over the sound, so it has to be in a dead space. Not totally dead. I mean, my room is larger than a vocal booth, but I've put enough padding around and worked to basically create a nice, very, very short ambient sound to the room. Part two of this is that from a listening point of view, it's critical that you know that what you're hearing out of your speakers is what other listeners are going to hear their end. Now, obviously nobody is listening on the same system, but generally there's a line of which you want to be able to add your own flavours into it, but not too much. For instance, bass. Very, very common that what happens is with no soundproofing, you will get a lot of bass build up in the corners of your rooms. And obviously your speakers are near the edge of those rooms. So you end up turning down your bass because you're hearing more of it. Then when you go and listen to it somewhere else, you realise that either it's got loads of bass or it's got no bass. And again, phase relationships, and none of those things are sounding the same tone as what it should be translating. So you'll go to a person's house, play them the track, and then that bass will just sound in a whole different tone sometimes. So it is, all of these things are an investment in yourself. GIK in the UK, very popular, GIK. I've got 2 of their corner bass straps and a couple of their other ones, and I've made homemade various baffles that sit around behind that piece of artwork. There's a baffle, there's 2 baffles with cylinders, so that the sound spreads around and gets lost, and then that one is like a very thick padding. It's a whole nother conversation, but it's very important. 5. DAWs, DAWs, digital audio workstations. Which one are you going to choose to work in? They all do very much the same thing. It's literally whatever you fancy. They all do things slightly better than the other and slightly worse than the other. I use primarily Logic Pro, and that's because most people, including the person I learnt off, used it. And therefore it made sense for me. I wanted to be able to go into that studio and know exactly all his key bindings, all of the shortcuts. And once I got locked into that for over 10 years now, I can't get out of it. And I wouldn't want to anyway. Logic Pro is the most amazing program and incredibly affordable. I think it's the most affordable one out of all of them. And it does the most things. And it does them amazingly well. It comes with amazing sounds. So I've always been an advocate of Logic. Pro Tools, you'll hear a lot about, is something that gets used a lot by industry pros, and the reason for that is because back in the day that was the best one, and so it's translated that they still use it. Second reason is because of that, and because they produce their own hardware, they produce their own interfaces, that they studios were equipped for Pro Tools. Now, Pro Tools is an amazing program. It does a lot of things now that the other DAWs don't do when it comes to film editing, mixing, audio, speech, timecode. Lots of these things. It's a pro act. There's no doubt about it. It's very, very handy. So lots of people use it as the end digital station, audio workstation. But for creating wise, Logic Pro is amazing. Cubase is used by Hans Zimmer, so that's always going to be good, but it's very expensive. And Ableton. Ableton tends to be used by dance electronic music makers who like to use and create music in a slightly different way. So all of these DAWs are linear, which means that you start on bar 0 and you build it up, and it's just a song that's this length. Ableton works slightly different. Ableton is a loop-based, sample-based program. So that means you add in a sample and it still plays in this sort of circular way, right, in a loop. And then you can do other things with it, but that's why that one is very popular. Number 6 is a MIDI keyboard. I'm sitting in front of an 88 key keyboard right now that has hammer keys, hammer weighted keys, so it feels like a piano because that's where I'm coming from. But you just need something to get you going. You can get them very cheap. They're amazing tools to use. Some people don't even use them. Some people just input keys. But if you want to go down the film composer, media composer route, you need to be able to feel and play in. And also what you need is just a couple of movable sliders, so you can play and you can affect different things at the same time. So it's a more hands-on way of making music. 7 is sound. So we've got all our equipment. We now need to make some noise. And yes, you may play instruments, you may record those in. That's the best starting point for sure. But as film composers, in particular media composers, there's a lot of genres and styles that get thrown at you with very short deadlines. So you have to invest in yourself, you have to invest in the sounds that you have, keep them unique. Amazing companies out there like Spitfire and East West as two starting points that provide sounds across the board, various different things. But what's important is we have to be unique, we have to have a sound of our own. It's difficult when everybody's using the same sounds, right? So that's why you'll see a lot of emphasis on people making their own. So you sample an instrument. I've got a piano behind me and I sample every key. It goes into the computer so that I can play it and change notes as I go without having to re-record it. But at least it's the starting point of having my own sound. Guitars and things like that. I don't sample the guitar, but I sample synths and things like that come into my studio, drum kits and various things like that. I look out on the internet to understand where the market is going, what sounds am I missing, what sounds would I need for an upcoming project that are unique to me, that aren't widely used, and how do they all come together? Where were those sounds recorded? Would they blend well with the stuff that I've got? So it's a big mix. Buying hardware will stand you in better stead than most software. Software is very, very easy to use, but like I said, the thing with having hardware is that it feels unique. You utilize it more. It keeps its value financially. you'll always be able to sell most hardware for more than you bought it, because most of it appreciates. And so that's why in retrospect, I wish I'd not gone so heavy on software, but it is so quick and easy to make music with some of the software now. I used to have this whole room used to be full of synths and old samplers and drum machines and stuff, and it just became very difficult to use that stuff within projects. Hence why I went down the route of maybe just sampling the bits that I liked the most, sold it, went fully in the box, which is in the computer, other than the piano and guitars and some drums. So yeah, up to you. Next one is plugins. Now, we can obsess all we like about plugins, and many people will, including myself. I love them. And this accounts for also outboard hardware that we're talking about. You've created your track, and now we're manipulating your track to make it sound the best that it possibly can be. And you get plugins. Plugins are developed from the outboard hardware that was created over the years and still continues to be. We're talking compressors and EQs and distortion boxes and all these sorts of things, right? And it is important to have them in your arsenal. If you've got the money and your studio is doing really well, of course, I would have outboard compressors and things like that. They just sound better. But the plugins are very, very good now. Logic Pro comes with amazing plugins, but it does have a few gaps, and a lot of DAWs will have gaps. They can't offer everything and be amazing at the same time. So, Plugin Alliance, Waves, Analog Obsession, shout out to that guy who makes free versions of a lot of hardware. Amazing manufacturers, and you do need these things. And again, these all come into this idea of you creating an easy sound, creating a unique sound in the fastest, simplest way. I have a template. This will be another video. I have a template that I'll show you, whereby I open up my DAW, Logic Pro, and everything is kind of set out already, so that I can just create. I don't have to think too much about it. I've got very high quality plugins, I've got high quality sounds, and they all contribute to me being able to create music very, very quickly, because some jobs that come in only give you half a day to make a 1.5 to 3 minute piece of music, which is a huge, huge ask. Hence why you need these things ahead of time. I hope that helps. Join my channel, and I'll speak to you later.